Many have disagreed with the positions articulated by Aaron Rodgers, and to his credit, the Packers quarterback did not run and hide from his usual Tuesday appearance with Pat McAfee. He addressed the situation head on. I don't think it's irresponsible to speculate on whether or not he obtained some professional advice on how to get himself out of this crisis. There are experts out there who will give you advice on what to say and when to say it. Here's what he had to say to Pat McAfee today, specifically regarding the storm of something other than rain that broke out last week after he last appeared with Pat McAfee.
I do realize that I am a role model to a lot of people. And so I just wanted to start off this show by acknowledging that, I made some comments that people might have felt were misleading. And, to anybody who felt misled by those comments, I take full responsibility for those comments.
He also said, I share an opinion that is polarizing and I misled some people about my status. His initial apology felt like that it was focused more on what he said on Friday, not that he was apologizing for lying to people on August 26th. And I thought he was leading up to that, to a big moment. I apologize for lying. I agree that I was lying. I was not telling the truth. I was trying to conceal my status, and I went about it the wrong way. There's no harm in saying that. I would have a ton of respect for him if he said that. I'm not looking to drag the guy through the mud. I just want him to acknowledge that he lied, Just tell us that you lied. And this is kind of a well-parsed, probably negotiated, well, I don't want to say I lied. I don't want to have a tape of that. I'll do this vague general apology that if you want to interpret it as meaning I apologize for lying, so be it, if you want to interpret it that way. But it takes a little work. It takes a little elbow grease to interpret it that way. Why not just sit down and say, I'm sorry I lied on August 26th. I didn't want to disclose my status, and I didn't know how else to deal with it, and I shouldn't have handled it the way I did. What's wrong with that? I would love that if he did that.
Oh, there was nothing wrong with that, Mike, and that's absolutely what he should have said. And, you alluded to the PR person may have helped him out. I wondered if he had a PR person in this, because he also said in his statements, I stand by what I said. So all those comments, does that mean everything he said on Friday was accurate? I mean, to me, it was not an apology. It's like, if I offended anyone, I'm sorry you're offended type thing is how it came off to me. But if he had said some of what he said today initially, I think everyone would have had less of a problem with what he said than what he said on Friday. I mean, Friday was just a fiasco. Today, he cleaned it up a little bit, but not all the way, Mike. There's still a little bit of a mess there.
Yeah, there is. And, he said what he was going to say, and I think he said all he's going to say. And it will be interesting. There was an attitude I picked up at one point where this is all he's saying about it, period. Like press conference, reporters who are paid to cover the team, who may be the ones who are justified in being a little pissed at me for lying about my status and entering that press room every week without a mask on while I was pretending to be vaccinated. It'll be interesting to see if he does the Bill Belichick, it's already been addressed. I've already said all I'm going to say about that, because that will not go over well. If he does not answer the questions that are posed to him by the people who are in the room when he was violating the protocol in support of his lie, that will not go over well.
Yeah, and they're the ones who asked the question that prompted the answer of, yeah, I'm immunized. They're the ones who answered it, and they did follow up on it. And he continued to enforce the lie with a follow-up question. So, yes, they deserve the answers, and he should respond to them with whatever questions they have left, even though he's talked twice since then. He hasn't talked to the people he directly lied to, Mike, or the people he sat in that room with unmasked for however many weeks it's been. And, oh, by the way, the NFL, it sent out the protocols reminding teams of the Aaron Rodgers rule, which basically they said by sending that out that Aaron Rodgers violated protocols, which we all know he violated protocols.
And I don't know if Pat McAfee came back around to it. I paused the interview after about 15 or 20 minutes when it felt like they moved on. I had other things I had to do, and I can't just sit there and constantly listen if he's going to talk about things that aren't relevant to why I wanted to hear him. I don't, I'm sorry, but I just can't shut down my day. maybe this came up. I want to know, did he make a commitment to comply with the mask protocol, the mask requirement when he comes back? I don't know if you listen to all of it, but that's something I'm going to circle back around and check out. I don't think he did. I don't feel like it was moving in that direction, but he's going to have to make that commitment, because even though he's got a 90-day testing holiday when he returns, and the 90 days begins on the day he tested positive, and he also won't be subject to being knocked out for 5 days as a close contact with someone who ended up being infected. Even though he gets a pass there, he still has to comply with the mask requirement, and that'll be interesting to see if he does. Maybe he'll just stop doing press conferences and take the fines that the NFL will impose there if he doesn't show up for media availability, which has been an issue from time to time with other players. So I don't think this is over yet. He did take a lot of the steam out of it. He didn't add to it. He tried to walk it back a little bit, but I still think there's some unanswered questions that I assume we'll get the answers to at some point. I hope.
Well, and you know what'll be weird, Mike, is the next time he talks, is assuming he plays on Sunday, it will be post-game. And are you going to ask all those questions post-game, or are you going to start talking about the game, and then the Packers PR staff cuts it off and says, all right, he's done. And then you come back Wednesday when he would talk again, and he says, I've already talked to you guys. You guys had a chance to answer those questions Sunday. So it's going to be weird timing on all of this, and he can play that off to, hey, you had availability after the game, and you didn't ask me all those questions, so you've already talked to me since then. So weird timing on all this, too, assuming he plays on Sunday.
Yeah, it is weird, because I would assume he's not required to be available on Wednesday for his midweek press conference, right, even though he's going to start if he's cleared, because he's currently on the COVID list. COVID list guys are basically out of sight, right, out of mind until they are cleared to return. So, and that makes it weird too, because he could sit in the same seat with the same digital connection that he used to talk to Pat McAfee and A.J. Hawk today to do a press conference tomorrow with Packers reporters, under the assumption he's going to be cleared to play by Sunday. And on that point, he did say there's a small possibility he won't start against the Seattle Seahawks because he has to be cleared from a cardiovascular standpoint. Is there any heart issue? This is a guy who's been shut down for 10 days. And remember, when Chandler Jones was knocked out for a game due to COVID, he missed the second game, not because of COVID, but because he'd lost 15 pounds and he wasn't in game shape ready to go. So it's not a 100% guarantee he's going to play on Sunday, and he said that himself. I think that was the other big piece of news, that he acknowledges the door is open just a bit for him to not play.
Yeah, and I talked to somebody in the league today who talked about him sitting out and he's not able to do anything. He said today he's walking and he's doing yoga, and we'll amp that up some to running. But he's not throwing. He's not throwing to teammates, as far as we know, at least. He's not doing any of that stuff. So can you just walk back and practice on Saturday and play like there's no rust after 10 days of really kind of sitting around, Mike? I don't know. That's going to be interesting to watch, to see how he comes out of this. There are only a handful of players who can just not practice and walk out there and just pick right up and flip the switch on. It just doesn't really work like that.
Well, and we saw Dak Prescott after a 3-week layoff when he hadn't played, and he clearly had been working between games. And I assume Aaron Rodgers has some capacity to stay in shape at home, but there's a difference between what you do on your own and what you do when you're in a team facility, what you do when you're practicing, all the things that are necessary. He's on his own until he goes back. And if there is a small handful of guys who can pull it off, Charean, I would say he's one of them. And it'll make for a great story if he comes back and plays really well on Sunday, and we get Russell Wilson back. So we didn't get Mahomes versus Rodgers. We hopefully will get Wilson versus Rodgers, and Russell Wilson and the Seahawks desperately need that win, and they have not won at Lambeau Field since 1999. And Wilson obviously has never won there because he hasn't been around until 2012. Let's hear from Aaron Rodgers talking about his position on politics and activism and sticking to sports. Here he is.
I'm an athlete. I'm not an activist. So I'm going to get back to doing what I do best. And that's playing ball. Like, I shared my opinion. It wasn't one that was come to frivolously. It involved a lot of study and what I felt like was in my best interest for my body. But I'm, further comments, I'm going to keep between myself and my doctors, and I don't have any further comments about any of those things.
Yeah, he's going to stick to sports after he spent 45 minutes not sticking to sports, and I have no problems with people using their platforms to say whatever they want to say. You can be criticized for the substance of what you say. There are some out there who will criticize you for the mere act of saying anything when what you say disagrees with their opinions. I mean, let's face it. There are half of the people in the media, or at least the mindset of half of the people in the media, I don't know the exact percentage that fall in this bucket, but the idea is stick to sports because you're saying something I don't like. If you're saying something I like, then go ahead and don't stick to sports. And the people who yell at us in the media and the athletes to stick to sports on the opinions they don't share have no qualms about sharing their own opinions. I fully support people saying whatever they want to say, but I also support the rights of others to share their opinions and critiques of what they said. That's the marketplace of ideas, and I'd like to think we can do it tactfully, like adults, and professionally, but obviously in this current cesspool that we've become, it's hard to do that. But I'm not going to be one of these that yells stick to sports to Aaron Rodgers. I think everybody should be able to say what they think, and if he wants to be an activist, be an activist. If he wants to speak out, speak out. I think that he dipped his toe in the waters on Friday and he realized it was too damn hot or too damn cold, and I'm not going to get back in that tub.
Well, and the problem I have with it, Mike, is he spread misinformation. And as he pointed out, he is a role model. And to spread that misinformation, people listen to him and people follow him. And so if he's saying correct things that are factually correct, I have no problem where he stands. I have no problem with him using his platform. But let's don't spread misinformation about COVID and the vaccines out there for other people to go, well, Aaron Rodgers said that. Well, Aaron Rodgers didn't get vaccinated. Well, Aaron Rodgers did this or did that, when it's not factually correct.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, one of the reasons why the union stayed silent about this, I believe, is that the union did not want to provoke one of its members, and it did not want to prolong this conversation that entails one side of the discussion saying things that could dissuade anyone out there who's still on the fence about getting the vaccine. Look, once you get the vaccine, you've gotten it. But there are people who are waiting, and they're watching, and they're procrastinating, and they just don't want to do it for whatever reason. For whatever reason. A lot of people just don't want to do it. I don't think I need it. I just don't. If there's any risk whatsoever, why do it? I'm not worried about COVID. I'm young. I'm healthy. It's not going to touch me. It's not going to affect me, even though plenty of people have died who had that attitude. The union doesn't want someone in a profile like Aaron Rodgers to be saying things that could fuel the folks who are continuing to put it off and put it off. So that's why the union didn't say anything. And I think they also believe it's just bad business to be calling out your members publicly. And it's funny. He didn't call the union out directly. It was all, and it wasn't even implied. He acted like it's up to each individual as to whether or not they're going to sign off on these rules. And he just glossed over the fact that the union signs off on the rules for the players. And unlike Cole Beasley, who put the union in the crosshairs, Aaron Rodgers did steer clear of criticizing the union. Maybe that was a favor to his friend J.C. Tretter, who used to be the Packers center, is now with the Browns and is the NFLPA president. But, it's part of this twilight zone that we went through on Friday, because Aaron Rodgers knows how unions work. And this idea that I didn't sign anything, I didn't agree to anything, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't agree to anything. Your union does.
Well, and when they came out today with the protocol reminders, Mike, they put in the NFL and the NFLPA jointly agreed, and then listed, obviously, the Aaron Rodgers rule was among those things that they put in there, a reminder to mask up during indoor press conferences, which, as we know, Aaron Rodgers never did.
Yeah, and we'll see if he does when it's time for him to return, or if he'll try to find some sort of a workaround. That will not help him at this point. Unless he gets vaccinated, he needs to comply with every rule. And he will be told, I believe, if you don't comply, once he's fined, and he should be, and the Packers should be fined for not forcing him to comply, even though it's a bad rule, it's a bad system, and the league has put the teams in a tough spot. Going forward, if you don't comply, the penalties will increase up to and including a suspension.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.